Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. My name is Suzanne, and I'm the head coach at G.R.A.C.E Financial Coaching. And today I have Spencer Hilligoss with me. Spencer is a passive investor who's deployed 7 figures of his own capital into passive investments over the past 7 years. Way back in 2019, Spencer retired from a 13-year leadership career in Silicon Valley with tech companies. Now he focuses on serving fellow investors through Madison Investing, a club where passive investors gain access to the same types of niche investment opportunities where Spencer deploys his own money. This includes cash flowing assets like self-storage, multifamily, and private credit. Spencer, thanks for joining me today.
Suzanne, very excited to be here. And
Yeah.
clearly I have a lot of dumb things I've done with money. So I think this is going to be a great discussion.
Full disclosure, guys, Spencer's notes were a little longer than the average guest. So
it could be a book. Try to keep it tight.
Exactly. I know every time I interview somebody like you, it's like, oh, there was this one and this one and this one. I'm like, you got to pick one. You got to pick one.
Yeah, I know. I was like, let's just, you can focus me and let me know.
So first, tell us about Madison Investing. This sounds like a very interesting and not the typical investment firm route that people normally think of.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we started investing differently when I was still in my W-2 job. And, Jennifer, who's my co-founder for the club, as well as my wife, she and I had our own careers for years, and we wanted to look for alternatives that could produce cash flow, monthly income, besides just chalking money away in our 401ks. So we started investing into real estate, buying rentals. And then we realized eventually, what if we just buy pieces of apartment buildings, bigger properties, self-storage facilities? And then in our network, we found out most folks don't want to go out and, shocker, but no one wants to fly out to the Midwest or the South to go take a look at the properties they're going to invest in. They don't want to do diligence. They don't want to pour through the reports. So we do. I enjoy this stuff. And what we do is we find great teams and great deals, put our money in with them, and then share those same things we're investing in to our club. And then folks come along and invest their money along with us into these types of deals. And so it was never the plan. This was a side hustle for years. Some similar parallels to your journey as well, I think, Suzanne. But I was doing this as a passion, labor of love thing with our own money. And then eventually now we have hundreds of other actual investors from around the country who invest into these types of deals along with us.
So to kind of dumb it down, instead of you brokering a deal for somebody in California who wants to buy, let's say, a strip mall in the Midwest.
Right.
That person is handing you money, and their money is going into an investment.
Correct.
Of real estate. They don't own the entire piece of real estate.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it's super scary for most of us, myself included, to go and buy something, real estate or anything that involves a big ticket number, right? Like 5 digits, 50 grand, 75, 100 grand plus. That's usually what the starting investment amount is for these types of things. And to do that 1,000 miles away in a different state across the country, very intimidating. So we help de-risk that as much as you can. And we just go invest in a piece of something much bigger, because a piece of a big apartment building, for 200 unit apartment building that's creating great cash flow and monthly income, that can be more hands-off than, for example, the rental, which we may talk about today, for one of my first dumb mistakes that I made with money when I bought a local rental.
It's people do not realize, and the listeners of this show know that my background is in commercial real estate management, but people do not realize the time and money and effort that residential real estate management requires. And when you're the owner and the property manager and the handyman, because you want to be called first when the sink is leaking,
That's right.
And it's 3 a.m. when the water heater goes out, yes, maybe you can handle it for a hyper local property for a one-off. Let's say you bought your starter home on this side of the railroad tracks, and now your family's grown and you're on the other side of the railroad tracks, and going to the other side of the railroad tracks to fix a hot water heater. It's not going to happen very often.
Right.
But you're on vacation with your family, and now you're getting a phone call. Like it's not necessarily an everyday problem, but when it is a problem, it's a problem.
And surprisingly, it always seems to happen when you're on vacation.
Of course it does.
No, and to your point, like, we've also eventually went on to hire property managers for our properties that we had initially. We had a local rental 45 minutes north of where I'm sitting here in the Bay Area, California. And we got up to 5 rentals in the Midwest, way better price to buy them.
Oh, sure.
but the headaches remain with property managers.
Right.
You know, they're taking what, 10% of your income, and then you manage the manager, as it turns out. So there's always ways to interrupt the
you're not interfacing, collecting rent, right? That's on the property manager. But when one of those 5 Midwest properties, and you know, I don't know where you were in the Midwest, but there's a tornado.
Yes.
New roof. Now we're dealing with an insurance claim, and now you're actually dealing with like a middle manager to deal with your insurance claim. And so the layers get it turns into an onion very quickly.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily this cut and dry investment that a lot of people think it is. I'm going to have an investment property and it's going to be so easy and it's going to make me money. I mean, the majority of them, you know, do not turn a major profit.
Absolutely. And I mean, you talk to a bunch of folks in California, right? I'm sitting here in the Bay Area. I know that you spend a lot of time in California as well. And the break even is the big celebrated thing for a lot of California investors. If they're covering their monthly, principal and interest and taxes and insurance on their rental, they're stoked. They're so happy. But I mean, that's not why we started doing it. You know, we wanted to invest for cash flow that would eventually stack up, create more income streams, and start changing our trajectory for our household.
Right.
But you have to really work hard to go find that. And even when you find that, you then have to figure out, well, geez, how is $200 a month really materially going to change our life, right? And so you have to ask those harder questions. And semi-passive is what I call it now. A rental at best is semi-passive. It doesn't mean they're bad. There's a place for them, in anyone's portfolio. But we have a couple young kids still, and for anyone else out there that has obligations in life, which most people do when they're adulting, that's not something they're eager to add. Is more overhead to their life.
Right, exactly. So the benefit of someone coming to you with 10 grand, 20 grand, something 50 grand, where they can get a piece of this, and kind of, now tell me if this is wrong, but kind of set it and forget it.
Yes.
Here you go, Spencer. I'm investing in a portion of this. I realize this means I'm not going to own the entire Costco shopping center. Right. I realize that I'm not going to get the money back that whoever owns the whole thing does get back, but I'm going to get back a piece of this investment, and I'm not really going to have to be that involved at all.
Absolutely right. And to be clear, the diligence still happens up front. So whenever I first heard, a passive investment, what does that really mean? It's like, well, yeah, you still have to read the documents up front. I know that we all like to cruise right by, like when we update our Apple iPhone, and we're like, I'm not going to read these P's and C's.
So funny you said that. I literally just did that 2 days ago.
I had an older kid actually ask me that. He watched me do it, and he's like, why didn't you read that? And I was like, oh, I'm caught, So that's not the case when you go and invest $50,000 or $100,000. You absolutely have to do some of that. We're here to help with that. But to your point, it is passive. Like you can look at the quarterly and monthly reports. You can get direct deposit checks back in. And then at the end, if it goes well, there's a big check that comes out because you sell the property. And so it's been the most passive of strategies that I have personally found. And that's why we've leaned in so much to investing our own capital into it over time.
Yeah. And the lower investment point is lower, relatively speaking, right?
Relatively speaking.
We're talking about 20 versus 200,000, right? Because 200,000 would be, that would be not achievable for certain people.
Totally. It's unwieldy to think about numbers that big for most people. So the minimum typically is going to be 50K, which is still, it's not low for most people. And I don't care how big someone's net worth is. That's a big chunk of change, So this is something that when we encourage folks to come over, this is a journey. Like it's an education process. And I would say when we first started, most of the folks were from the tech network, like folks that I knew from my career of 13 years in financial tech companies. And so they know data science, they know software engineering, they know how to go out and build amazing products, but they'd be like, well, how do I get my head around this? And so that's the way I talk about it. There will always be more opportunities. There's no rush on time, and people can just look at this like an education journey. We're here to help with that. Sometimes people take 12 months before they do their first one.
Oh, absolutely. And then even then, you'll get the people who don't have a good feeling about something or they had the 50 sitting there, and then the stock market, whatever they had it in the stock market, went down, and now it's not 50 anymore or whatever. And that's the beauty of real estate, though, is that there's always going to be something.
Right.
And
life does happen, so stuff comes up and that's why it's just look at it like a long game. Truly. It's all about investing for prosperity on a 5-7 year time horizon. This isn't like a get rich quick thing. This is not a crypto play. This is right. This is has an address. It's a real building. It will do what you want it to do, and it's the best kind of boring when it's done right.
And if you wanted to, you could get on a plane and fly to the Midwest and go see it, but you
Yes.
don't have to.
They can hop on a plane with me if they want to. I don't think anyone's taken me up on that offer, but they certainly can. You know, it's not as, I think it's exciting, but not everyone necessarily wants to walk around and look at like the nuances of a property. I know that you have that expertise as well, Suzanne, from your prior life, but
yeah, I'm going to start walking around the Jack in the Box outside and wondering why the grease trap isn't properly functioning. But
yeah, these guys are slacking.
The thing you mentioned about your friends coming over from the tech side to do this. Yes. Another thing that I encourage my clients to do that a lot of people are going to say, wait a minute, shouldn't you be telling them to do the opposite, is find an expert in something that you might be interested in a little bit, but not interested in a lot of it. So here's my confession. I don't open every statement from my own personal financial advisor. I just don't. It's not as exciting to me as it is to him. That's why I hired him. Yes. Because it's a lot more exciting to him than it is to me. Yes. And so I don't want anyone to invest in something they don't understand, but to invest in something that is not as exciting to you, but is exciting to the person who has your money, that's kind of what you're looking for.
I think that is excellent advice. You know, I try to stick to a fundamental principle of invest in what I know. And now when you step outside, you get into alternative investments like the stuff that we like. You have better believe, and I came from some experience in this stuff. I still went and hired. I literally did. I hired a coach for a very specific way to look at new deals and analyze them. Over the course of the next 2-3 years, I hired 3 more. You know, and this is on top of nerding out so hard. Like we're talking about reading 24 new books in an 18-month period, more than anyone should have to do. No one has to go do that. That was overkill. But yes, go seek out counsel. There's just so many helpful people that are experts in the space, and you can find experts in any niche on the planet now. And it's just, a click away, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But in terms, specifically regarding like the financial coaching versus financial investing, I literally probably engage with my advisor less than I should. Because it's something that I am paying a professional to maintain, to follow every day. When I got 25% on my money a couple years ago, boy, was I thrilled. Didn't really care how he did it.
Yeah. When the dashboard is looking green, then you tend not to need to look that much.
Hey, Matthew, sounds good. I'll talk to you next July.
I mean, one thing I have to share, because like that's just resonating, and this is a real example. This has come up for us dozens of times in the past few years, where we go close on a new apartment building amongst dozens of other investors and our own money, going and buying this piece of real estate. That's going to, within 90 days or so, start sending us monthly or quarterly checks, right? And after the first quarter, we send out these reports. There's like a summary of, here's what the property is doing. Here's what we're changing on it. Here's the financial performance, the data and the performance on what's the open rate for that email. And the first one we send out is really high. The second quarter, and then for the next 4 years, it is like near zero, because there's 1 or 2 really deep nerds in there that want to look at the stuff that we put together, and we're always going to put it together for folks to read it. Like, let's check out this Excel spreadsheet that talks about all these, inputs and outputs and revenue and expenses. People don't open it, and now if they're curious about like when's it going to exit and get their big check, maybe there's a spike here and there. But to your point, people don't want to see that. They just want to know it's going well.
Yes, exactly. I had a colleague who was in the office next door to me, and he had been managing this. Great grandpa had bought the dirt in North San Diego County in 1930 something. I mean, he beat the gold rush out there, and he's long gone, right? And now his granddaughter is 78 or 80 years old, and every time a new grandchild or great grandchild was born, the property got broken off a little bit more.
Oh, like little parcels.
There was a child I was writing a 2-cent check to every quarter. I'm not exaggerating. It was ridiculous. But she would be, I think her name was Rose, something like that. And without fail, my colleague would come in after sending his quarterly property reports and say, guess who was the first person to email me back?
Oh, there you go.
And it was always Rose every single time. So there is going to be one, But out
Yes.
of that property, I mean, distribution wise, we probably had 24 people we were making distributions to. She was the only one who ever did anything, ever said anything.
And it's kind of that Pareto principle, right? Like it's like that one person it's always going to be asking the vast majority of questions.
Yes, and some of the questions like didn't even make sense. Like it
yeah, and they become a little emotionally charged, and that's all fine. You know?
There's always going to be a couple of them out there. So, well, Spencer, I know before you got to become our expert in this area, there may have been one or two dumb things you did with money. So what would you say is the dumbest to date?
Oh my goodness. I would have to say right out the gates, the number one would be a year and a half into my day job career. So this is like, okay, had gone through, college, had worked my food service jobs, had interned, had done every small task. And then I landed a job right after college because I just found it on Craigslist. And ironically, it ended up being a really great, high-paying job. I was terrified of doing inside sales. I'm an introvert. I cherish conversations like this, Suzanne, like where it's one-to-one, but I can't, do it all day nonstop. But I take an inside sales job, and I'm making more than 6 figures in my first year out of college, and very, very little financial self-awareness. So I'm doing that for a year and a half. Probably buying more than I should. Get a new TV, feeling pretty cool, get my first car that I could pay for. And I decide with all my youthful wisdom to quit because I felt like I never got my gap year, and I remember going in to quit from that job and give my resignation letter to my boss. And he goes, okay, you're going for a whole eat, pray, love thing, huh? And to be fair, I guess I kind of was, and I left that job as a guy in my early 20s with a substantial amount of savings at the time. And we're talking like probably 60 grand, for a guy who was paying like, somewhat subsidized rent, still paying my parents money to live in their house, by the way. I didn't get the free ride. I went out for the next year and lived and traveled and went to Europe and, road tripped through Austria and Croatia. And it was wonderful. I don't know if I have regrets about it per se, but I got into debt.
Gotcha.
I not only spent the money, I got into credit card debt, got at least 30 grand racked up on that. And even cashed out my Roth IRA, I think.
Wow.
Like I was just having a grand old time, playing in bands and traveling. And I think, Jennifer, my wife and co-founder, she had her own journey that got her into a similar place, and we got into debt together, over the next 5 years.
Wow.
I remember, in hindsight, a very dramatic fashion, like saying I was sitting on a beach in Croatia, and going like, okay, I think I'm done. I think I'm done traveling. And I actually went back, called up my former boss, who is now a very good friend of mine. And I was like, will you please take me back? Will you please take me back? I'm ready. I'm sorry that I quit. And in hindsight, they were so hardcore in the interview. They were like, you quit and we're not sure why we want to let you back. So you can come back and the if was, you have to come back and take a job as a customer support rep. We're opening a new center in Colorado. So you'd have to move there on your own dime, take the job. You're going to make, a very modest salary. And then if you take that job, we're not going to promise you anything with that. Maybe there's a chance for advancement, maybe not. So I did all that in a very dramatic fashion, flew back, paid on a credit card to fly back quickly, drove across the wintry tundras of Wyoming and stuff in the middle.
Oh God, it was the middle. You went from a beach in Croatia to Colorado in the middle of the winter.
Yeah, man. Oh. And I, to be fair, like I went to school in Colorado, so I wasn't a stranger to it, but it was very whiplashy. And over the next 5 years from that, I ended up running a center of 200 people on the other side of that. So I started as a customer support rep and just worked my butt off. But it all started with me saying, "Oh, I'm too cool for this work thing. Let me go have my eat, pray, love moment and get in debt."
So how long from when you left the company originally to came back?
It wasn't a full year, actually. I think it was more like 8 or 9 months.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd rather you get it out of your system in 8 or 9 months, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and I worked hard for that. Yes. It was a grand old time.
Wow, that's amazing. All right. So what was your favorite country while you were over there?
Whew. I mean, Croatia was, I think, the most beautiful I went to. That was stunning. And ironically, we just went back there. First time I've been back with my whole family. We lived in Montenegro and Croatia for 5 weeks this past summer, which was amazing. Really fun to go to Oktoberfest in Munich, Germany as well. So great memories from that.
Yes. My husband was in Split, Croatia. And I needed to pull up a map. I was like, oh my God, I'm such an ugly American. I don't even know where this is. The pictures of the area were beautiful. The pictures of the food might have been even better.
I mean, the whole thing is there's so many influences there too on the food. We went to Dubrovnik in Croatia, and I don't know how many Game of Thrones fans are out there, and it's a little bit
yes, that's right
now, but we sat on the throne. It was awesome. We got to nerd out on that stuff.
I love it. All right. So if we could go back, would we do it again? Would we do it again, but do it for less time? Would we not do it at all? What do you think?
Gosh, in hindsight, I think the financial compounding, man, if the power of compounding and the power of time, I would have done more of a sabbatical, and like what I didn't understand at the time. And I've now hired hundreds of people across companies and helped so many people in their 20s and 30s. Navigate these challenges because it's so personal, because I made my own mistakes. And I think that if I look back, I'm like, I could have had some leverage. I was performing incredibly well. I was working really hard when I was there. I probably could have said, hey, what about a sabbatical? Hey, what about maybe I'll just take a brief break. I absolutely would have kept the money in the retirement account. I absolutely would have invested some of that as opposed to just putting them in a savings account. I mean, we've all in 2024 become very accustomed, a little too much probably, to these crazy good high yield savings accounts rates, which, I love them. They're going away. They're going away now. But
you're going to make me, I cannot get over this. This is so funny. I logged into my high yield. I'm not exaggerating, for the first time in like 4 months.
Yeah.
Today.
Oh, really?
And, at the time of this recording, guys, it dropped under 4%. And I was like,
no. Pour one out.
No.
Pour it out. Yeah, they're done. But it's a heck of a lot better than what I had when I was back at that job. And it was still like in the low, I don't know, 1 or 2%.
Oh my gosh. No, even just not 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was getting people. Oh no, actually, that's a total lie. I had someone a month and a half ago tell me that the interest rate on their credit union savings account was still under 1%.
And they've been holding in stuff.
And they didn't know.
Oh, that's brutal.
It was homework. Log into your savings account. Tell me what the interest rate is.
Oh, that's great homework to give. That's a sting when they get there.
I know. I wish I'd given it to them 4 years ago, because we would have had it in a money market. Or, I mean, honestly, this particular person doesn't need it right now, but they're very, very, very cautious. Sure. I would have had them throw it in a 12-month CD, half of it, something, anything better than something percent.
Oh, breaks your heart. But
and they think it's okay. They think it's like the best thing to do because it's a credit union. It's not a real bank. They care about me. No, they care just as little about you as the big one that has the downtown headquarters in Lower Manhattan. That's how much they care about your savings rate.
They care about the location of the decimals and the zeros on their side.
That's and so that was only a couple months ago, and that's a regular credit union savings account. And so, yes, at the time of this recording, this is going to be about a month or two delayed, but it's going down, folks. So
it's going down.
It's going down. Going down hard.
I'm absolutely mourning my 5% as well. So I have not logged back in, but now I'm probably going to have to go to just.
You're going to have to log back in after.
Feel its sting,
So I'm going to keep you a little bit longer because I know that you had 2 on your list that you wanted to talk about, and I think this one is very important because of our offline conversation prior to this. I'll just make one statement and let you run with it. When people start to look at investment properties, the ease in which the TLC home and garden flipping houses generation has made this look so easy is not an accurate representation, is it?
No, it's not. And thank you for leaving some time for it. I wasn't sure if we were going to, but I genuinely hope people take away the learnings from this, which is that, to exactly your point, my gosh, the HGTV watching generation, right? Let me say it this way first. Buying rentals can be a very helpful tool to build wealth over time when you go in eyes wide open. for us, we had kind of 3 phases. I won't go through all 3, but this was our first phase. We see it this way in hindsight. We had no idea what we were doing when we went and bought this thing, but we couldn't get comfortable buying stuff far away like we are now. We drove around. This is when one of our 2 boys was an infant. So he was with us all the time. We took a whole summer, drove around the Bay Area. I was educating myself rapidly. I was working at a real estate tech company technically during the day. So I had some pretty badass education going on. Even then, it took us the whole summer to find this property. Cost $430,000. We could get a loan on it. Now that interest rate's looking pretty good, but long story short, we bought it and it cost us over $100,000 cash to buy it, because you have to put down like 25% down for an investment property usually. And now what is it cash flow? Well, about $200 a month. And like, why is that a miss, right? Because like, yes, it's appreciated hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're really, really grateful for that. But that $100,000 was earmarked, at least in our minds, to start generating income and like start generating cash flow, and to do that in a low overhead way. It's not supposed to sit there and add headaches and then produce a little bit of cash every month. It's
tiny little bit, right? Yeah.
Right.
What could you? So it's not necessarily, all of the things that we had talked about, the roof getting torn off a property that you own, or the water heater going out, or, this one was a duplex or a fourplex? Duplex. Both tenants need new bathrooms.
Exactly.
The last time they were updated was both 20 years ago. And so now we're doing 2 bathrooms in the same quarter.
Yeah.
And just that stuff alone, but really, was it that, or was it the missed opportunity cost of the $100,000?
You nailed it. And yeah, it's the missed opportunity cost for sure, which is that $100K could have gone so much further. And it comes down to the way we look at goals now in a very simple sense. This is for our own lens of like, okay, before I pull the trigger on any type of money movement, the question we ask ourselves is like, what's the goal for the money? Like, and if the goal for the money is growth or appreciation, that's a fundamental difference than income. And if it's income, that's the big lesson to your point about opportunity cost, Suzanne, which is like, we got $200 a month for $100,000 down. That is not a cash flow win. That is not an income win. We could have gotten triple that on a monthly basis or more had we used our knowledge that we have now to go out and seek out something that was aligned to our goals, And to your point, also, we have a good year right now on cash flow, and all of a sudden, tenant has to leave. And a tenant leaves, we just had to repair the heck out of one of those units. And we're still positive for the year, but not much. And so those are the learnings, and I would challenge people to say, I know it's embedded in us from every maybe dinner you've had with that one uncle or aunt who has real estate for 30, 40 years. And they're like, you got to buy local. And it's like, got it. I know Uncle Joe lost his shirt in that development deal 30 years ago.
Right.
But all the same, like, there's different ways to do it now.
Yeah. I mean, the old cliche of there's different ways to skin a cat. There's different ways to invest in real estate now.
Exactly.
You don't have to be called at 3 a.m. for the hot water heater going out while you're on vacation.
And it doesn't have to be on your block, right?
It doesn't have to be 2 doors out. It's funny you say that, because there's a house down the street here that has been unoccupied for 4 years.
Okay.
And I'm like desperate at this point. Like, someone just sell me this stupid thing. Like,
I know we had such a similar story. Yeah.
I know that I'm going to end up walking the dogs past it every day, and that's like actually worse having it that close. Personally, I think
I would agree with that. That's a very polarizing take, but I completely am on your side of it. Like, we on our block, at our former house we lived in for 9 years, really beat up old house. We sent letters for about 2 years to buy it. Got nothing back, but I'm actually very grateful we did not get that, because we moved.
So I'm gonna walk out the house and be like, they haven't raked their pine needles yet.
Oh man.
And that's just gonna make it just twist it a little bit more, right?
Exactly.
And that's only if you're purchasing, you have the money to put down as the investment property. And by the way, the interest rates right now are still triple what is the interest rate on my current house. And so just that alone, I don't think I would make it back in the rent that I can charge in the area we're currently living.
Yeah, deal breaker. It's a very, very different environment right now to go buy real estate. So like, Take a breath before, if anyone's looking, take a breath.
Exactly. I love it. Well, and I really do actually subscribe to this particular method of investing, especially in real estate, having grown up in commercial real estate, just the management side, none of the sales side, but knowing what can go wrong and what has gone wrong and what I've seen go wrong, and hurricanes, and Hurricane Sandy did a number to the properties I was managing at the time. And that wasn't even my money. It's kind of monopoly money when you reach that point in,
Those are
in
big
commercial real estate
properties, right?
management. Like it's just numbers on a page. But when it's your money and Hurricane Sandy comes through and you've got a rental property on the beach in Connecticut,
Yes,
and it's half in the water, yeah, there's insurance, but there's a piece of you that's missing after that. And so it's emotional, just like every financial investment is.
yeah, you can't fully mitigate that emotional part of it, can you? And right
No.
now, I would say that trend of bad natural acts, acts of God, that is not exactly appearing to slow down. So I
Right.
completely agree. Insurance only gets you so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And then after the first incident, you might not have insurance. That's a whole conversation for another day, though.
But a very timely one.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably too in depth for what folks want right now.
Exactly. I know. We'll come back and do 4 hours on insurance another time.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Spencer. This has been seriously enlightening. Anybody who wants to reach out to Spencer, MadisonInvesting.com. The link is in the show notes. And Spencer, maybe we'll have you back one day to talk about some more updates on the real estate market.
Yeah, I would love to. This has been awesome, Suzanne. Thank you so much for having me on.
I hope everybody joins us next week for another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. Thanks again, Spencer.